What's up, y'all? So meditation is something that I talk a lot about in terms of with students, with clients, with friends, and on socials as well. And also, obviously, I get questions about it. So this video is specifically to address almost everything in terms of meditation, my practice, how to start, the process of meditation and what your experience should be like, as well as what your goals should be, and more. And more often, more likely than not, we're gonna make it a series to cover some other methods and tweaks and potential things that you could add on into your practice, as we say. And so personally for me, meditation is really where I started in terms of unknown personal development, because back when I was in 7th grade, for Europeans, this is around the age of like 12 or 13, is when I started meditation. And the whole reason I did was so I could be better at basketball. And it's not just, to be better at dribbling, but the problem that I had in playing the sport of basketball was I could not focus. And so this guy, who you probably know, Kobe Bryant, talked about meditation, how he meditated, how it helped his focus and more. And I'm like, okay, this is something where literally, like, I suck at, frankly. And so I started meditating for 3 minutes a day and grew that practice more and more and more. We'll talk about how to progress, etc. But grew that for now more than 10 years. I'm currently 25, so you can do the math there, starting around 13. But let's get into it. In terms of actually meditating, obviously, in order to record this, we had to be in a little bit different environment than what I would normally pick. So to talk about the environment, you can generally see around me and you'll be able to hear. But what I focus on is finding first a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. So, if you're at home or living with roommates, I always, in those instances, I always just respectfully let them know, hey, I'm going to be meditating for this amount of time, right? And then once you found that quiet place, you want to also be able to make it dark. So, right, any room you can generally close the blinds or curtains and turn off the lights. And then the next step, because the meditation that I practice personally and have not really changed from whatsoever in these more than 10 years that I've been meditating, is just stillness meditation. To throw in even a bit of faith there's the whole verse in the Bible. It's Psalms something, but it's be still and know that I am God. So, if you have faith and everything there, that's another interesting point and probably something we'll get into in terms of philosophy later. But it's just stillness meditation. So key there is still, right? And so generally, we'll talk about a little bit of variation, but the way I started out and the way I teach all my friends and clients to start it as well is in a chair in a comfortable position. You can see me, I'm seated right now. The lights would normally be off in a dark enclosed room pretty much. Bedroom is perfect. And in a comfortable position. So right, like some people like to do the whole pretzel pose. That's not really me. I sit with a straight spine, a little bit of a recline, with either my hands folded in front of me, right over my lap, or my hands here. And comfortable, but still, that's the whole point of this, is you want to be in a position that's comfortable enough where you don't need to move. You don't need to, readjust your legs or scratch your nose or uncross your hands or do all these kind of things. You want to keep it completely still and stable for however long you're meditating. And so what we do there, like I said, this is probably, as of late, my more favored position. You connect the body here, interlacing the fingers and more. Feet are flat on the ground, and I will generally not wear shoes. I'll have socks on or bare feet. Generally, I would take off my hat as well. And anyways, crossed here. And the way I practice is eyes closed, of course. Your tongue is going to be on the roof of your mouth. If you're not sure what that means, you can Google mewing and see a picture. Maybe Jake will even throw that on. If not, just Google it. And so your tongue is on the roof of your mouth. And I used to think, funny enough, that like if this was the roof of my mouth, I thought that meant I poked the roof of my mouth with my tongue. No, it's more like if this is the tongue, it's more like resting on the top with the tip of your tongue right behind your teeth, right? And so you're in that position, everything closed, mouth closed, eyes closed, in a closed position here, relaxed, and the way we do it is through the breath. So everything is going to be through your nose, and it's 4 seconds in, a 4-second pause. That doesn't mean like that, that means you're not holding your breath, but you're just pausing there in the moment. And you'll be able to figure it out when you literally try this and can tell the difference between, and like you're holding your breath and you're straining versus four seconds, and I'm counting, using that count as an anchor, 1, 2, 3, 4 in my head, and then 4-second exhale. I'm not breathing through my chest, I'm breathing here, through your stomach. There's more scientific terms, I can't even remember them right now, but breathing through my stomach, and in order to practice this, you can always go like this and go. And that's the 4-second routine. And so I run through that cycle. Some people add an extra 4-second hold on the end. That would be like more into like Navy SEALs, I believe, practices. They call it box breathing. But I do 4 seconds in, a 4-second pause, and a 4-second exhale once again through the nose. And then, right, you're back into the cycle. And so that is frankly all you really need to know to get started with your first meditation session. But let's talk about starting out and the way to progress and the process to go about it. So if you've never meditated before whatsoever, whether that be like a vinyasa, a yogic meditation, or something along those lines, maybe you've done breath work, what you want to start with is, it's a small amount, especially if you were like me and you notice you have like the ADHD tendencies, you can't really focus, you can't calm your mind too well. And so I started off with 3 minutes. Just 3 minutes, and that's where I turn the lights off, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, bang, I hit the timer, toss my phone on the bed or toss my phone, away from me, generally out of reach. Make sure it's not going to go off whatsoever, right? Because we don't want to be disturbed. And just set that 3 minutes, and it's 3 minutes of and if I didn't tell you anything, you would probably experience a whole lot in those 3 minutes, and that's where we come in now. And so if you're someone who's an active thinker like I am and I was, you're probably going to have your thoughts run a ton. And even you might be chasing, I call it like chasing the rabbit, chasing rabbit holes, going down different thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. And so it helps to have an anchor in terms of where you're really like feeling into and more or less like thinking about for that meditation. So what I normally recommend is thinking through, this is what in spiritual practices is known as your third eye. In scientific terms, they would call it the pineal gland. You can also call it the, I might even mess it up now, no, the crown chakra, if you want to get even more, I guess, woo-woo with it or yogic with it. And so you focus there, and it's like, so the scientific background here is you literally have, the pineal gland is in all shapes and forms except an actual, physical eye. It has all of the other parts that your normal eyes have in terms of processing, in terms of visualization, et cetera. It just doesn't have, right, the eyeball popping out of your head to see in this current reality, right? And, that might be a little teaser for later. We'll see. And so you focus and put your attention there. And it's literally like, even though your eyes are closed, it's like you're trying to focus and look through, just like you were focusing on the camera or focusing on a point in the distance or something along those lines. And yeah, especially if you're reading, always eyes closed. It's going to be way more helpful for you. And so eyes closed and you're focusing here. The other point that I would say is if you're really feeling more or less like in a loose sense energy in your body, you can focus right here in your center and just leave your center there. And like I said, anchor yourself in the breathing and everything there. And the reason we keep that 4-second count is because, like we just talked about, the thoughts that may or may not be running rampant in your mind. And so in order to address this, what I tell all my clients and students and friends is meditation generally is in 3 stages. You have stage 1, which I love to call monkey mind. You can call it stream of consciousness, you can call it monkey mind, you can call it chasing the rabbit, whatever. Stage 2 is going to be what I call the autosuggestion state. And I'm pulling that from Dale Carnegie and Napoleon Hill, who talk about basically when you receive autosuggestions or downloads or something along those lines from your subconscious mind. And so that's where the actual feeling of that stage 2 is going to be. Your thoughts are still running a little bit, but they've slowed much down, much they've slowed down a lot, right? And so the way to describe that and that feeling and what it's like is it switches from your thoughts just being there and going all over the place to you more observing your thoughts. And especially the longer you meditate and the more you practice, you'll really, really understand this. So if you haven't, obviously try it. And so you'll observe your thoughts, and the thoughts will also switch from, oh, what did my neighbor do yesterday, and my mom, and blah, 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 right, and all these kind of things. And they'll switch to actually be auto-suggestions or downloads or synchronicities, which are helpful ideas, reminders that, oh, you should text this person, okay, this is something for work, right? And they're going to be moving at a much more slow pace in terms of your actual thinking. And like I said, you may observe it and realize that this is something helpful that comes out of meditation. And in fact, your thoughts may not be directly coming from your conscious mind, right? This is where we're connecting to the subconscious or the superconscious. And we'll talk a little bit more about stages as we get through and talk about the actual approach during meditation. But stage 3 then, to finalize it, is what I see as most easily explained as, if you've ever played a sport or lifted or something along those lines, it's getting in the zone or flow state, as it's also known. Or Eckhart Tolle would call it pure presence, right? You're fully in the present moment. And that's where, frankly, time can stop. So I'll have meditations, and especially when I'm really, really, really avid about practicing and practicing a ton and meditating a lot, is where I'll meditate for 20 minutes and it'll feel like this. And that's because I spend that time in stage 3, in the zone. And really, like, that's where you are acting and operating more or less purely on instinct and purely in that presence, where things like time are not important to you. You're doing exactly what you need to do. And right, in this case, you're meditating. And that's where time can go really, really quickly. That is one of the goals to get to. And we'll talk about that. But to bring it back to starting off with meditation, you have your 3-minute timer set. You're going to close your eyes. Your hands are, generally here or here, something along those lines. You're in a comfortable position. If you're starting out, you're going to be tempted to scratch your nose or, turn or adjust your feet. Do not, right? And then also, you're going to be tempted to follow every single thought you have. Chase the rabbit, as I like to say, right down the hole. And that's fine in the beginning, right? This is something you are practicing at, you're getting better at. And so the way to deal with that, that's the whole reason we're actually counting the breath. We have that anchor in the background where if you do notice, I'm following a lot of thoughts, things are going on. And the way I like to describe this is, when you're really meditating, doing it well, you're like a rock in a stream, where you may have thoughts that are like debris, it's fish, it's leaves, it's trash, whatever, and it's flowing over you. But guess what? Instead of you, just like another fish, are following your thoughts, you're a rock there where it's just going to go over. You might think about it and you might hang on it for a second, but it's going to float away. And that's really the goal of what you want to get to. And so you can use that count of the 4 seconds in, the 4-second pause, and the 4-second out. And I literally do Mississippi's. I don't really know what Europeans do to count a proper second. But anyways, 4 tugboat, 4 Mississippi, whatever you want to say. And so you use that as your anchor to pull yourself back from that monkey mind and stream of consciousness, literally. And so if you're fresh, if you're new, it is not totally unreasonable to have those 3 minutes seem like the longest time ever, because you've never done this and you don't really know how to focus well. And so your thoughts are just running the whole time and you just feel like you're sitting here like, right? Like that, of course, we're still. And so that's completely natural. Don't get frustrated. That's fine, right? Bring your focus back to the breath and it's going to come more. And then, so just to give you a background too, if this is something you really want to get good at, and I would recommend everyone to improve the practice and just overall become more and more present. The ROI in your life is just spectacular. But if you're starting off with 3 minutes, do a week and meditate at least once a day for 3 minutes. But what I would really recommend is, if you're working out and working in general, whether that be as you're in the online business world, a 9-to-5, a college student, or even in high school, right? If you're doing homework, is to add in these meditative sessions either before or after. So I would do that mandatory session, whether it's 3 minutes or 10 minutes, but starting off with 3. And then I would do right after I worked out. So when I was doing this, right, I was originally playing basketball. I would do right after, and sometimes even before, a basketball workout, and that's going to program my mind to associate work and the things where it's going to help me to be in present with that present moment. And then also I would do it before I would work, so I can really turn up that focus, right? So, maybe you've just come off your lunch break and you want to lock back into your study session, to your work, whatever it may be. Boom, go and hit that meditation to get dialed back in, so then you can open your eyes and get to it, right? And so once you've done that, generally I would say, and what I did myself was I would spend a week with that practice, 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And then that next week, I would move it to, and sometimes it would take less, but when you're comfortable, I would move it to 5 minutes or 6 minutes. And then the next week after that, 8 minutes. After that, 10, 12, all the way up to 20 minutes a time. And especially when you get towards that 20-minute mark. For background, I do generally 15 or 30 minutes at a time, regularly throughout the day, as well as I'll do even longer ones, 30 minutes to an hour or more, where those are like, if I want a big tap, if I want almost like a restoration kind of meditation is what I call that. And we'll get into those in other videos, and applying meditation in different ways for your life. But especially in this beginning stages, you want to work up to that. And the whole goal, by the way, is yes, to meditate in general, but we want to build the amount of time you spend in that stage 3, especially because that's going to improve your overall focus and really, really help your presence in your life and interactions with others in your work and your workouts and your sport, if you're playing sports, etc., is to improve and lengthen the amount of time you stay in that stage 3, as well as stage 2 Stage 2 also. That's going to help your ideas, your productivity, and more, especially if you follow those ideas. They're incredibly rewarding. We'll talk about that more later in other videos. But like I said, the goal is to expand the amount of time you spend in stage 3. And so, especially if you're starting, what that may, in actual meditation may look like, okay, we'll say you're going for 6 minutes. It may be 4 minutes of stage 1 where you have to, and this is really helpful because if you are not giving your mind time to relax, some of you may experience this just like I did. I always had trouble going to sleep because all of my thoughts would run, and they would have to be released. Because that, right before I was going to bed, was the only time I gave myself time to be peaceful and silent and actually listen to my thoughts, right? I was clouding it with music, with always, looking at my phone or other forms of entertainment, et cetera, and not actually giving your mind time to release and more or less brain dump all of these thoughts. And so in the beginning, if you're doing a 6-minute meditation, you may have 3 or 4 minutes or more, especially in the very, very beginning of that stream of consciousness, monkey mind, brain dump, because you simply have to get them out of the way. Once they're out of the way, though, that's where things really get interesting and cool. But my point being is you might have 6 minutes where out of those 6 minutes, you're 3 minutes of monkey mind, 2 minutes of the stage 2 where it's really helpful ideas, and then you may go right back to monkey mind, or you may get into that stage 3. And so that's where especially the example, I guess now realizing, is easier to tell if it's something like 20 minutes, right? So especially when you're at that 20-minute mark, the better you get, the more time you'll spend. So for example, if I do 20 minutes now, my time where I'm spending in the different stages might look like a minute or 2 minutes of stage 1 monkey mind. Once that monkey mind is gone, it could go either right into stage 3 for 10 minutes or more, or I could spend a little bit of time in stage 2. Maybe I'm 5 minutes there where I'm getting all these ideas. It's just incredible. I'm noticing these. And then when you're in stage 2, you could go back to stage 1, right? And I could be back in stage 1 for a minute, and then maybe I go right back to stage 3. But we want to increase that time we spend in stage 3, bottom line. And this is just something to add. If you've ever played a sport, and maybe this is something you had to work on, it works the same with meditation, where if you try to focus on it, you think, oh, I need to be in the zone, it's not going to happen, right? That word observing that comes into stage 2 is going to be really helpful and is actually going to be how well you do that is, and the response in terms of stage 3 is predicated on how well you do that. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in stage 2, more than likely you're probably going to start a thought pattern and then follow that rabbit down that rabbit hole. So don't worry about that. It's more like, that's the other thing too. If you're someone who's getting caught on the count and not using it as an anchor and as a base, but actually obsessively like, I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, like you're gonna go to the bathroom or something, let go. And I will say sometimes you can totally relax that count and just know naturally. And breathe in and out and let go and release. Because that's the thing, is really, it's like, remember, you're the rock and that water's just gonna rush over you. And that's what it feels like. You let go and you're more or less floating. That's kind of the end feeling if I had to give a visceral description of what stage 3 feels like when you're, in this setting. And so, frankly, that's the way to do it. That's the way I've been meditating for now more than 10 years and what I do. So if you're fresh, start off with 3 minutes and increase gradually. Feel free to ask me any questions. Be aware, there's stage 1, there's stage 2, there's monkey mind. Things will happen. Your goal is to increase that stage 3 time, the time that you spend there, and grow that, because that's going to be more flow for your work, for your workouts, for your sports, for whatever. That's going to be more time spent in present and interacting with others, where you're not having a separate mental conversation run. You're focusing where everything that's going on is just you and me, right? And that's why I've been able to become such a good listener and also just a conversationalist in general, because when you and I are talking like this, that's the only thing that's going on, and that's because of the presence that I built. We're going to talk about some benefits of meditation and why meditate in general. Because this thing that I keep bringing up, presence or flow, is like the fuel, is the absolute fuel, the gas in your tank for working and just performing at optimal levels, right? If we want to talk about living a life of alignment, right, which is, the end goal for always myself, for others, is to live in line with that highest version of yourself, that, that where you're doing exactly what you were meant to do and living in alignment, and your life, you're happy to wake up and you're fulfilled by what you do, and everything matches that purpose and mission. That's the start. This is the foundation, is building, guess what? That presence, putting that gas in the tank. So then you can go next to, okay, I'm going to use that presence to now get into step 2, which is self-awareness. That presence, that fuel, allows you to now realize, okay, what am I doing unintentionally? What's going on in my life? Why am I like this? And answer those questions, right? And then get into more of programming and reprogramming your mind, things we'll talk about later in other videos, and we talk about in congruency, as well as finding clarity for yourself and taking all these things and using them and applying them to your life. It all requires presence. It all requires that fuel. And so that's the exact reason we do this, right? Why meditation is so important, and why it's not something that you can do and leave, right? It's something that I will do my whole lifetime, right? And so on top of that, another one that's come up with clients in congruency lately actually is also, it really, really helps with emotional control. So if you've ever seen, I think it's in Waterboy, it's in a Kanye song where they talk about the amygdala. And the amygdala, don't straight up quote me on this, but it is part of the brain where you have emotional regulation. And so actually meditation too will help you strengthen this area in your brain, where if you're somebody who reacts on a dime and maybe you have anger or whatever else, this actually improves that emotional control and allows you to be in the present moment, allows you to be calm and to not react immediately, but to understand, to digest, and then to move appropriately, right? And so that's going to bring calm and peace and presence over your life as well. And so those are, right, 2 incredible reasons to start meditating, if not more, right? You'll perform better, like I said, in workouts, in work, in life overall, in your relationships, your interactions with others. If you're somebody with a brand, your time on camera is immensely improved when you're operating from that present moment, right? Instead of pulling from a script. I'm not looking at, you can't see, but I'm not looking at a script. And I can do that because I'm purely pulling from presence, from what I know, and also from the subconscious mind, which is another benefit that comes with being in the present moment and also building that connection to that stage 2 and stage 3. We'll talk about that in other videos. But otherwise, for any of you who have questions, please reach out to me in the comments below or on Instagram, where I'm definitely going to be active. I post Q&As twice a week, and I'm happy to answer any questions about meditation in the DMs, or especially on those Q&As. So, hope you all enjoyed. This is your video on meditation. I just felt terribly appropriate. Love.